feels like you're trying, but nothing is really moving, doesn't it? You're thinking, planning, adjusting, reflecting, and still there's this quiet sense of being stuck. Not completely lost, not completely lazy, just paused in a way that doesn't make sense, especially because you are putting in effort. And maybe what makes it heavier is this thought you don't always say out loud. I thought I'd be further by now. There's a silent timeline in your head, an image of who you were supposed to become at this stage of life, and every time reality doesn't match that picture, it feels personal. Not just slow progress, but a quiet fear that maybe you're falling behind, that maybe you missed something, that maybe you're becoming ordinary. It's not jealousy when you see others moving forward. It's pressure. Because you don't just want movement, you want the right movement. You don't want to build the wrong life. You don't want to waste years climbing something that won't matter to you later. So you think carefully. You question yourself. You evaluate every step. Is this enough? Is this the right choice? What if I'm wasting time again? And when every decision feels like it could shape your entire future, of course you hesitate. Of course movement feels slow. You're not walking freely, you're calculating constantly. And constant calculation feels like paralysis. Maybe you don't feel stuck because you're incapable. Maybe you feel stuck because you're trying to protect your future self from regret. But protection can slowly turn into restriction, and restriction can feel like being trapped. The truth is, growth doesn't always feel like progress. Sometimes it feels like doubt. Sometimes it feels like standing still while something inside you quietly rearranges. You're learning what doesn't fit. You're becoming more aware of what matters. That refinement is subtle, and subtle growth doesn't look impressive from the outside, but it isn't nothing. You're not behind, you're not failing, you're not wasting your life. You're in a season where clarity is forming slowly, and slow doesn't mean wrong. Maybe instead of asking why you're not further, you could gently ask what you understand now that you didn't understand a year ago, because awareness is movement too. You don't need a dramatic leap right now, just one honest step, not perfect, not life-defining, just honest. Maybe you're not stuck. Maybe you're becoming more deliberate. And that takes patience. Take a breath. Nothing about this moment says you're finished. It just says you're thinking carefully. And that's okay. And maybe the hardest part isn't even the slowness, it's the uncertainty. You don't mind working hard. You mind not knowing if it will matter. When effort feels connected to something clear, you can handle pressure. But when effort feels like a gamble, it drains you. Because then every step carries that quiet question in the background, what if this still isn't it? That question doesn't shout, it lingers, it makes you cautious. You start second-guessing ideas before you try them. You shrink plans so they don't hurt as much if they fail. Not because you lack courage, but because you felt disappointment before and you remember how heavy it was. So now you move carefully. But careful doesn't mean incapable. Slow doesn't mean stagnant. It often just means you understand consequences more deeply. When you were younger, movement felt lighter because the stakes felt smaller. Now you're more aware of time, responsibility, long-term impact. That awareness adds weight to every decision. Of course, things feel slower, but slower isn't the same as stuck. Sometimes it means you're choosing with intention instead of impulse, and intention naturally takes longer. There's also something else happening quietly. You're shedding versions of yourself that no longer fit. Old expectations, old comparisons, old timelines. That process is invisible, so it feels like nothing is happening, but internally your priorities are rearranging. And when priorities rearrange, momentum pauses, not because life is ending, but because direction is recalibrating. Recalibration rarely feels exciting. It feels uncertain. It feels in between. But in between is not failure, it's transition. Maybe instead of asking why you're not further, you could gently, but it protects you from building a life that doesn't fit. You don't need a dramatic breakthrough right now. You just need quiet consistency. A small decision made with clarity. A step taken without overanalyzing it to death. Progress doesn't always roar, sometimes it whispers. And if you pay attention, you'll see that you're not the same person you were a year ago. Your thinking is deeper, your standards are more refined, your tolerance for misalignment has decreased. That's internal movement, and internal movement often comes before visible change. So if it feels slow, if it feels unclear, if it feels paused, maybe you're not stuck at all. Maybe you're preparing for a direction that actually fits you this time. You're not behind, you're not incapable, you're becoming deliberate, and that takes patience. For now, just take a slow breath. You're still moving, even if it doesn't look dramatic yet. And that's enough for today.